The war room of the Velcran flagship stretched across half a kilometer of polished metal and glowing screens. Commander Reth stood at the center, his 4 eyes scanning the holographic display of a small blue planet, Earth, the third rock from an unremarkable yellow star. The council members sat in a circle around him, their scaled bodies relaxed in their seats. They had done this 847 times before. "The species calls themselves humans," Reth said, manipulating the hologram with his clawed hand. "They barely control their own star system, split into hundreds of factions, primitive weapons, no unified defense grid." He turned to face the council. "The assessment team recommends 72 hours for complete elimination." Elder Vex clicked his mandibles in approval. "Quicker than the last 3 conquests. What is their population?" 14 billion, most concentrated on the homeworld, some scattered colonies on nearby planets and moons. Reth zoomed the hologram to show Mars, a red planet with small dome structures. This is their largest off-world settlement, 2 million inhabitants, barely worth mentioning. The council voted. Every member raised their hand. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would be species number 848 to fall before the Velcron Empire. 20 light-years away, Captain Bora sat in the command chair of the TDS Indomitable, humanity's furthest patrol vessel. He was drinking coffee and reading reports when the sensors started screaming. His crew of 200 scrambled to their stations. "Captain, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace," his sensor officer shouted. I count over 500 ships, sir. 500! Bora felt his blood turn cold. Earth had maybe 30 combat-capable ships in total. He activated the long-range cameras. What he saw made his hands shake. The alien vessels were massive, each one 3 times larger than his ship. They moved in perfect formation, like sharks cutting through water. "Send everything to Earth, all sensor data, all visual recordings, everything." Bora's voice was steady, despite the fear in his chest. "And send a message. Tell them we made first contact. Tell them it's not friendly." The communications officer's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Transmission sent, sir. They'll receive it in 4 hours." Bora nodded. "Good. Now charge weapons. We're going to slow them down." His executive officer stared at him. "Sir, there are 500 of them and one of us." "I know the math, Lieutenant, but someone needs to buy Earth time to prepare. That someone is us." Bora activated the ship-wide intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. We just made contact with a hostile alien force heading toward Earth. We're going to engage. We're going to die, but we're going to make them remember us. Man your stations. It's been an honor." The Indomitable turned toward the alien fleet and opened fire. Its missiles streaked across the void. A few hit their targets, causing minor damage to the alien shields. Then the return fire came. Bora's ship lasted 17 seconds, but the data reached Earth. General Day stood in the command center deep beneath Sol, watching the transmission from the Indomitable. He watched it 3 times. Then he picked up the phone that connected him to every world leader simultaneously. "This is General Day. We have confirmation of hostile alien contact. Captain Bora and his crew engaged the enemy and were destroyed. The alien fleet is heading toward Earth. Current speed suggests arrival in 72 hours. I am activating protocol endurance. Every nation, every military, every resource is now under unified command. We have 3 days to prepare for war." On Mars, Governor Hyun received the same transmission. She immediately ordered the evacuation drills to stop. "Cancel the evacuation," she told her staff. "If Earth fights, Mars fights. Start converting the mining equipment into weapons. I want every person over 16 armed and trained by tomorrow." Dr. Mina worked in a laboratory in Tokyo, or what used to be Tokyo before it became part of the Greater Pacific Defense Zone. She was humanity's leading expert in electromagnetic shielding. When the military burst through her door, she didn't ask questions. She just grabbed her laptop and ran. 6 hours later, she stood in front of a massive screen showing Earth's defensive capabilities. It was not impressive. "We have partial shield coverage over major cities," she explained to the assembled generals and scientists. "But it was designed to stop missiles, not alien energy weapons. We need to recalibrate everything. We have 72 hours to reinvent our entire defense grid." "Can it be done?" General Day asked. Dr. Mina looked at him. "I have no idea, but we're going to try." Across Earth, the mobilization began. Factories that made cars started making missiles. Civilians who had never held a weapon learned to shoot. In Seoul, a former athlete named Ji-woo joined a resistance cell. In the ocean, submarine Captain Sang received sealed orders to survive the initial attack at any cost. In Busan, a teenage hacker named Young-ho joined thousands of others in preparing a digital warfare campaign. The world had never been united before. Wars had always divided humanity. But now, facing extinction from the stars, every human hand reached out to clasp another. Commander Reth watched from his flagship as they passed Neptune. He ordered the destruction of a small human research station there. 3,000 humans died in seconds. He broadcast the footage toward Earth. "Let them see what's coming," he said to his officers. "Let them feel despair. Maybe they'll surrender." Prime Minister Tae received the broadcast. She watched the research station explode. She watched 3,000 of her people die. Then she stood before every camera on Earth and spoke. "They think we'll beg. They think we'll break. They don't know humans. They don't know that we've been fighting each other for thousands of years. They don't know that we're very, very good at war. So let me say this to our visitors from the stars. You want Earth? Come and take it. We'll be waiting." Commander Reth received the transmission. He laughed. Primitive courage. It won't save them. He ordered the fleet to advance. The Velcran ships moved through the solar system like a storm. They destroyed the Neptune bases. They destroyed the Jupiter stations. They destroyed everything in their path. Each destruction was broadcast to Earth. The death count rose: 400,000, 500,000, 800,000. And still, humanity did not surrender. General Day watched the reports. "They're trying to break our will before they even reach us," he said. "Is it working?" asked one of his officers. Day looked at the recruitment numbers. Millions of volunteers. More than they had weapons for. "No," he said. "It's making us angry." 60 hours until the fleet reached Earth. 50 hours. 40 hours. Dr. Mina and her team worked without sleep. They recalibrated the shields. They weaponized every satellite. They turned Earth's orbit into a minefield. It wouldn't be enough, but it might buy time. 24 hours until arrival. Commander Reth sent his final message. "Humans, you have 24 hours to broadcast your unconditional surrender. If you do not, we will sterilize your planet. Every city, every bunker, every cave. You cannot hide. You cannot win. Accept mercy now. Accept swift death instead of prolonged suffering." General Day's response was broadcast on all frequencies, in every language, to every corner of space where the Velcrons could hear it. 2 words, simple, clear. "Come try," Commander Reth smiled. "So be it. Prepare for orbital bombardment. Let's finish this quickly." But as his fleet entered Earth's orbit, something unexpected happened. The primitive planet lit up like a star. Every weapon humanity possessed fired at once. It was like watching insects attack a boot. But these insects had teeth. The war for Earth had begun. The first bombs fell on New York at exactly 0600 hours. The city's electromagnetic shields flickered to life, deflecting some of the energy blasts, but not all. Skyscrapers that had stood for centuries collapsed in seconds. The Hudson River boiled. Manhattan's population of 8 million became 3 million in the first 10 minutes. Commander Reth watched from orbit with satisfaction. Target the next city. Make it quick. But Dr. Mina's team had prepared for this. Every shield generator on Earth was linked together in a desperate network. When one failed, power automatically rerouted from another. The bombardment that should have destroyed 10 cities in an hour only managed to heavily damage 5. It wasn't victory, but it was survival. Captain HFY commanded the TDS Defiant, Earth's largest warship and the pride of humanity's fleet. She knew her ship was a toy compared to the alien vessels, but toys could still break things if thrown hard enough. All ships, this is Defiant Actual. Execute attack pattern Omega. We're going straight at them. Her second officer gripped his console. Captain, that's suicide. I know, HFY said calmly. But we need to scan their shields up close. We need data. And we need to show them that humans don't run. She activated the ship-wide channel. All hands, battle stations. We're about to do something incredibly stupid. Let's make it count. 30 human warships accelerated toward the Velcran fleet. Behind them came another 100 civilian vessels. Cargo ships and passenger liners converted into weapons. Mining ships from the asteroid belt joined them, their industrial lasers repurposed for war. They looked pathetic against the alien armada, like children throwing rocks at tanks. The Velcrans opened fire. Space lit up with energy beams and explosions. The first wave of human ships lasted less than a minute. The second wave pushed through the debris of the first. Captain HFY's Defiant took hit after hit, its hull breaching in a dozen places, but it kept coming. Range to flagship, she shouted over the alarms. 2,000 kilometers! All power to forward sensors. I want every detail of their shields recorded. The Defiant shuddered as another blast tore through its engine room. Transmit everything to Earth. Now! The data streamed out seconds before the Defiant exploded. Captain HFY and her crew of 800 died, but their sacrifice gave humanity something precious. Information. On Earth, Dr. Mina received the data with tears running down her face. HFY had been her friend, but there was no time to mourn. She ran the analysis. I've got it, she whispered. I've got their shield frequency. General Day looked at the casualty reports. 30 warships gone. 100 civilian vessels destroyed. 40,000 people dead in the space battle alone. But they'd destroyed 12 Velcran ships. 12 out of 500. The math was terrible, but it was something. They're landing ground forces, his tactical officer reported. Drop pods hitting Seoul, Mumbai, Lagos, Mexico City, and Sao Paulo simultaneously. Day nodded. Tell our people to make them bleed for every meter. In Seoul, Ji-woo watched the alien drop pod slam into the streets from her apartment window. She was 28 years old. An Olympic sprinter before the world ended. Now she was a resistance fighter. She grabbed her rifle and ran downstairs where her cell was gathering. Remember the plan, she told the others. We don't fight them head-on. We make the city itself fight them. Every building is a trap. Every street is an ambush. We make them afraid of shadows. The Velcran soldiers emerged from their pods like nightmares. 3 meters tall, covered in combat armor, carrying weapons that could vaporize a human in one shot. They moved in perfect formation down the streets, expecting terrified civilians. Instead, buildings exploded. The Velcrans had conquered 847 species, but they'd never faced an enemy that turned their own cities into weapons. Apartment blocks that had been rigged with explosives collapsed onto the alien troops. The sewers, laced with homemade bombs, turned into death traps. Humans fired from windows and disappeared before return fire could find them. Ji-woo's cell hit a Velcran patrol from 3 directions. They killed 4 aliens before retreating through prepared escape routes. It wasn't much, but across Seoul, hundreds of cells did the same thing. The Velcrans had expected to take the city in 6 hours. After 12 hours, they controlled only the main roads, and even those weren't safe. Commander Reth received reports from all 5 landing zones. The pattern was the same everywhere. Why aren't they surrendering? He demanded. We're killing thousands of them. Sub-Commander Vex studied the tactical displays. Commander, They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to make us pay. Every human we kill costs us time, ammunition, and casualties. The casualty ratio is 50-1 in our favor, but our soldiers are exhausted and their soldiers just keep coming. In Mumbai, a wounded human soldier detonated a grenade that killed herself and 3 Velcran troops. In Lagos, civilians threw themselves at alien forces with nothing but knives and courage. In Mexico City, a grandmother shot a Velcran officer before being killed by return fire. "They're insane," Vex said quietly. Under the ocean, Captain Sang commanded the submarine Relentless. He'd been ordered to survive, to stay hidden, to become a ghost that haunted the aliens. His submarine was old, designed for fighting other humans, but it could still launch missiles. He waited until a Velcran supply ship passed overhead, then fired. The alien ship never saw it coming. Sang dove deep and disappeared. The Velcrans searched for him for 3 days before giving up, but he was still there, waiting for the next target. Governor Hyun on Mars watched Earth burn from 200 million kilometers away. Every instinct told her to send help, but she knew Earth's orders. Mars had to survive. If Earth fell, humanity needed a backup. She addressed her colony. "Earth is fighting, Earth is dying, and we're going to honor them by surviving. We're going to prepare for the day when the aliens come here, and when they do, we'll teach them the same lesson Earth is teaching them now. Humans don't quit." On Earth, the bombardment continued. Shanghai became a crater. Moscow burned. But Dr. Mina's shield improvements saved Delhi. The electromagnetic network saved Cairo. Humanity was losing, but losing slower than the Velcrans expected. General Day moved his command center 3 times in 2 days as the aliens targeted leadership. He operated from tunnels beneath the Himalayas now, coordinating a planet-wide resistance. Status report. Population down to 11 billion. We've lost all major coastal cities. Velcran ground forces control approximately 30% of the surface, but their advance has stalled in urban areas. They're taking casualties they didn't expect. Their fleet? Still in orbit, still bombarding, but we've destroyed 34 of their ships now with suicide attacks and hidden weapons. They're more cautious than they were. Day allowed himself a small smile. They came here expecting an easy conquest. We're teaching them that nothing about humanity is easy. Young Ho sat in a bunker in Busan with 50 other hackers. They'd been trying to break into the Velcran communication systems for days. "I think I've got something," he said. His fingers flew across the keyboard. "Their encryption is good, but it's not perfect. I can't control their ships, but I can listen. I can hear what they're saying." He put the alien communications on speaker. The sounds were strange, clicks and whistles that the computer tried to translate. But the emotion came through clearly: fear, confusion, exhaustion. "They're scared," Young Ho said in wonder. "The aliens are scared of us." 1 week into the war, Commander Reth stood in his damaged flagship and looked at the casualty reports. 78,000 Velcrans dead, more than they'd lost in their last 30 conquests combined, and the humans were still fighting. "Commander," Vex approached carefully, "our troops are requesting relief. Morale is declining. They're experiencing psychological trauma from the constant ambushes and suicide attacks." "Psychological trauma? They're soldiers of the Velcran Empire." "Yes, Commander. But they've never fought an enemy like this. Yesterday, a human child ran up to one of our patrols and detonated an explosive. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. She killed herself and 40 of our troops. Our soldiers are having nightmares." Reth was silent for a long moment. "Increase the bombardment. Level every city if we have to. These creatures must be eliminated." But in the ruins of those cities, in the tunnels beneath them, in the mountains and forests and oceans, humanity continued to fight, because that's what humans did, They fought. Even when winning was impossible, they fought. Not because they thought they could win, but because surrender was simply not in their nature. And slowly, impossibly, the balance began to shift. 3 weeks into the war, Earth looked like a different planet from space. Where cities once glowed with lights, now only fires burned. The oceans were dark with ash. The atmosphere was thick with smoke. 8 billion humans remained from the original 14 billion. But those 8 billion were still fighting. Commander Reth stood before his senior officers in the war room of his new flagship. The original had been destroyed by a human suicide ship. "Explain to me how we still don't control this planet," he said quietly. Too quietly. His officers knew that tone meant someone was about to die. Sub-Commander Vex stepped forward with the report. "Commander, we control 70% of the surface. But the humans have retreated into underground tunnel systems we didn't know existed. They've been building them for years, apparently for nuclear war preparation. Every tunnel is defended, every intersection is trapped. Our ground forces advance at a rate of 1 kilometer per day. 1 kilometer per day?" Reth's voice rose. "We are the Velcron Empire. We have conquered hundreds of worlds." "Yes, Commander, but those worlds surrendered. The humans don't." Vex brought up footage on the screen. "Yesterday, in the ruins of Seoul, our forces encountered a resistance cell. We killed all of them. But before dying, they collapsed 3 city blocks on top of our troops, 200 soldiers buried alive. The humans are weaponizing everything: buildings, vehicles, their own bodies." Reth watched the footage. He saw a human female, wounded and bleeding, smile at the camera before pressing a detonator. The screen went white. "Who was she?" "Our intelligence identified her as Ji-woo, a former athlete. She killed herself and 73 of our soldiers. She's the 5th resistance leader we've eliminated this week. The 6th is already operating in her place." In the tunnels beneath what used to be Seoul, the new resistance leader named Min-soo briefed his fighters. "Ji-woo bought us time. She knew the aliens were tracking her, so she led them into a trap. That's what we do. We don't try to win battles. We make sure every battle costs them more than they can afford." General Day watched the reports from his command center deep beneath the Himalayas. Dr. Mina sat beside him, analyzing the latest data on Velcron technology. "We've been studying the wreckage of their ships," she said. "Their shields have a cyclic reset pattern. For 0.3 seconds every 30 seconds, they're vulnerable. Can we exploit that? We've built 3 ships in the lunar underground facilities using salvaged Velcran technology. They're crude and they'll probably fall apart, but they can use the shield frequency data Captain Hae-won died getting us. We can hurt them." Day looked at the casualty numbers. 6 billion humans dead, but 90,000 Velcrans dead too. A horrible exchange rate, but better than 0. "Who's going to pilot them?" "We have volunteers, lots of volunteers." Dr. Mina pulled up the files. "Captain Yoon-ji volunteered to lead the mission. She lost her family in the New York bombardment." On the moon, in a facility that had been a tourist center before the war, Captain Yoon-ji walked around the ship that would be her coffin. It was called the Vengeance. The other 2 were named Spite and Fuck Around and Find Out. Human engineers had built them from scraps and desperation. They looked like they'd fall apart if someone breathed on them too hard. "Will they fly?" she asked the chief engineer. "They'll fly once, maybe twice if we're lucky. The reactors are unstable. The weapons will probably explode and the life support might fail at any moment. But they'll get you to the Velcran fleet." Yoon-ji smiled. "Then they're perfect." She addressed her crew of 60 volunteers. "Everyone here knows this is a one-way trip. We're going to punch through their fleet and target their flagship. We're going to make them understand that killing humans has a price. Questions?" No one spoke. They all knew why they were there. They'd all lost everything. The three ships launched from the dark side of the moon. Commander Reth's sensors detected them immediately. 3 ships? They send 3 ships against our entire fleet? He laughed. Destroy them! The Velcran ships opened fire, but something was wrong. The human ships' shields were deflecting the attacks. How is that possible? Reth demanded. They're using our own shield technology, Vex shouted. They've copied our frequencies. The Vengeance, Spite, and FAFO tore through the Velcran defensive line. The Spite took a direct hit and exploded, but the other 2 kept coming. FAFO's reactor went critical and detonated, taking 4 Velcran destroyers with it. But the Vengeance continued straight toward the flagship. All weapons on that ship, Reth ordered. Kill it now! Captain Yunji's ship was falling apart around her. Half her crew was dead. The hull was breaching, but they were close. So close. This is for my family, she whispered. This is for New York. This is for Earth. She pushed the throttle to maximum and aimed straight at the flagship's command center. The collision happened at relativistic speed. The Vengeance ceased to exist as a ship and became a weapon of pure kinetic energy. It punched through the flagship's shields in that 0.3-second window of vulnerability and buried itself in the command deck. Commander Reth had just enough time to see the human ship coming before his world exploded. He survived because he was thrown into an escape pod that automatically ejected. 3,000 of his crew did not survive. For the first time in 50,000 years of Velcran conquest, a flagship had been destroyed. The explosion lit up Earth's sky like a second sun. For a moment, every human who could see it stopped fighting and stared. In his command center, General Day watched the flagship burn. He allowed himself exactly 5 seconds to feel hope. Then he got back to work. The enemy will be confused. They'll be angry. We need to press our advantage. All remaining forces attack now. Across Earth, humanity struck. Hidden missile silos opened. Submarines surfaced to fire their weapons. Resistance cells hit Velcran positions simultaneously. It was coordinated chaos, and it worked. Another 20 Velcran ships fell from the sky. On Mars, Governor Hyun received the news and cried. Not from sadness, but from pride. They did it, she told her people. Earth struck back. They destroyed the flagship. Commander Reth floated in his escape pod, watching his fleet regroup without him. He transmitted a message to the Velcran homeworld. His voice was no longer calm and confident. It was the voice of someone who had looked into the abyss and seen something that terrified him. This is Commander Reth. The humans are not like other species. They don't surrender. They don't break. They fight with a fury I've never seen. We've killed 6 billion of them, and the remaining 8 billion fight harder than ever. I request immediate reinforcement of the Grand Fleet. Send everything. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was shaking. Eliminen a todos los humanos ahora. Eliminate all humans now. They must be completely exterminated. If we leave any alive, they will come for us. In 100 years, 1,000 years, they will come. They don't forgive. They don't forget. They are a threat to the entire galaxy. The message reached the Velcran homeworld 40 light-years away. The High Council listened in silence. Elder Thren, who had voted for the war 3 weeks ago, spoke carefully. Perhaps we should reconsider. We've lost the flagship. We've lost almost 100,000 soldiers. The humans have lost 6 billion, but show no signs of surrender. Perhaps a strategic withdrawal. No! The other council members shouted. We are the Velcran Empire. We do not retreat. Send the Grand Fleet as Reth requests. 5,000 warships began their journey toward Earth. Enough firepower to crack a planet in half. Enough to finally, completely, utterly destroy humanity. But it would take them 3 weeks to arrive. In those 3 weeks, Dr. Mina and her team worked on something new, something desperate, something that would change everything. We've located their homeworld through captured navigation data, she told General Day. We can reach it. How? Day asked. We've reverse-engineered their hyperspace drives. It's crude but functional. We can build ships that can make the journey. And do what when we get there? Dr. Mina looked at him with hollow eyes. She'd been awake for 3 days straight. She'd lost her entire family. She had nothing left but spite and genius. We load them with every nuclear weapon, every biological agent, every horrible thing we have. And we make the Velcrans understand that if they kill us all, we'll kill them too. General Day was quiet for a long time. That's genocide. Yes, Dr. Mina said simply. But it's genocide in self-defense. They started this war to exterminate us. We're going to make sure that if we die, we don't die alone. How many Velcrans live on their homeworld? 40 billion. Day closed his eyes. 40 billion lives. Most of them civilians who had nothing to do with this war. But what choice was there? Earth was dying. Humanity was dying. Do it, he said. Build the ships. Across Earth, in hidden facilities and underground labs, humans worked on their final weapon. Not a weapon to win the war, but a weapon to ensure that losing the war cost the Velcrans everything. It was spite weaponized. It was desperation made manifest. It was humanity's last message to the galaxy. If we burn, you burn with us. The construction of the Revenge Fleet happened in darkness. On the far side of the moon, in tunnels beneath Mars, in hidden facilities on Earth, humans built 50 ships. They were ugly things, welded together from stolen technology and human desperation. Each one carried enough destructive power to kill millions. Together, they carried enough to kill billions. Young Ho stood in the Busan underground facility, looking at the ship he would pilot. He was 19 years old. Before the war, he'd been a student and a hacker. Now he was a volunteer for humanity's most desperate mission. His parents were dead. His little sister Hana was dead. Everyone he'd ever loved was dead. All he had left was this one chance to make the aliens pay. You don't have to do this, Dr. Mina told him. She'd personally interviewed every volunteer. We can automate the ships. You don't have to die. Young Ho shook his head. Automated systems can be hacked. They can be stopped. You need someone to make sure the weapon deploys even if the ship is damaged. You need pilots. He smiled sadly. Besides, I have nothing left to live for, but I can still die for something. Dr. Mina had heard that same answer from all 50 pilots, a generation of young people with nothing left but rage and purpose. It broke her heart, but she understood. She felt the same way. General Day recorded a message to be sent to the Velcran fleet. He looked older than he had a month ago. Everyone did. This is General Day of Earth's Terran Defense Coalition. We know your grand fleet is coming. We know you intend to finish what you started, so I want you to know what we've done. The video showed the 50 ships launching from various hiding spots around the solar system. Right now, these ships are heading to your homeworld. They carry nuclear weapons, biological weapons, chemical weapons, and some things we invented specifically for you. In 48 hours, they will reach Velcran space. Your homeworld has 40 billion inhabitants. End this war, or they die. You have 48 hours to decide. The message reached Commander Reth in his new flagship. He'd been reinstated to command after the High Council decided his experience was too valuable to waste. He watched the video and laughed. They're bluffing. These primitives can't possibly reach our homeworld. But Sub-Commander Vex was checking the data. Commander, our sensors show human ships entering hyperspace. They're using our stolen drives. They're heading toward home. Reth's laughter died. That's impossible. How did they... He stopped. How many ships? 50 confirmed launches, all heavily armed, all on intercept courses for the homeworld. Reth immediately transmitted to the Velcran homeworld. This is Commander Reth. Confirm human ships en route to your position. Deploy all defensive forces. Stop them at any cost. On the Velcran homeworld, which humans had never seen and couldn't even pronounce, the defensive fleet scrambled. 100 warships rose to intercept the human threat. The first engagement happened at the edge of Velcran space. 10 human ships were destroyed immediately, but 40 kept coming. The defensive fleet spread out to cover all approach vectors. They destroyed another 20 human ships, but the remaining 30 adapted, using evasive patterns and shield frequencies copied from captured Velcran technology. 5 more were destroyed, then 10 more, then 8 more, but 7 ships made it through. 7 ships racing toward a world of 40 billion lives. Young-Ho guided his ship through the defensive fire. Around him, he watched his fellow volunteers die one by one. The Spite's pilot, a woman named Hee-Jin, transmitted her last words before her ship exploded. "For Busan, for Korea, for Earth." Then she was gone. "I'm hit," another pilot named Tai Yang transmitted. His ship was falling apart. "I can't make it to the homeworld, but I can take some of them with me." He changed course and rammed a Velcran battleship. Both exploded in a ball of fire. One by one, the human ships fell. 6 left. 5, 4, 3, 2. Just Young-Ho and one other pilot, a woman named Sora from the Mars colony. They'd never met before this mission, but they were the last 2 humans in Velcran space. "I'm not going to make it," Sora transmitted. Her ship's reactor was failing. "My payload will detonate in 30 seconds. Make it count, Young-Ho." "I will," he promised. "See you on the other side." Sora's ship exploded, taking 4 more Velcran ships with it. Young-Ho was alone now, one battered ship against an entire defensive fleet. But he was close, so close. He could see the Velcran homeworld now, a beautiful green and blue planet not unlike Earth. 40 billion people down there. People who'd never done anything to hurt him. People who probably didn't even know this war was happening. He thought about Hana, his little sister. She'd been 7 years old. She'd loved drawing pictures of stars. She'd wanted to be an astronaut. The Velcrons had killed her without a second thought. "This is Young-Ho from Busan," he transmitted. He wanted someone to know his name. "This is for everyone we lost. This is for Earth." The defensive fire was tearing his ship apart. He wouldn't survive the next 30 seconds. But he didn't need to survive. He just needed to deploy the payload. At 1,000 kilometers above the Velcran homeworld, Young-Ho released the weapons, nuclear warheads, biological agents designed to kill Velcran biology specifically, chemical clouds that would poison their atmosphere, and one experimental weapon Dr. Mina had created, a self-replicating nanomachine that would break down Velcran DNA. Then the defensive fire found his ship, and Young-Ho ceased to exist. On the Velcran homeworld, Elder Thren watched the sky burn. The human weapons were deploying. Evacuation sirens wailed across the planet. But there was nowhere to run. The biological agents were already spreading. The nanomachines were already replicating. The nuclear fallout was already poisoning the atmosphere. "Casualties?" Thren asked quietly. "Projected deaths, 25 billion, maybe more. The biological agents are spreading faster than we can contain them." Thren closed her eyes. 25 billion of her people, because one commander had decided to exterminate humanity, because they'd thought it would be easy. "Send a message to the Grand Fleet. Order them to cease fire immediately. Order them to negotiate peace." "But Elder, now, before the humans send more ships." Thren's voice broke. "We've lost. We've lost because we thought we were fighting primitives, but we were fighting something far more dangerous. We were fighting a species that would rather die than surrender. Send the message." The message reached the Grand Fleet 3 hours from Earth. The fleet commander read it and stopped. For the first time in Velcran history, a fleet preparing for conquest was ordered to negotiate instead. On Earth, General Day received the communication. The Velcran Grand Fleet requests immediate ceasefire and negotiations. They've stopped their advance. The command center was silent. No one cheered. Too many were dead for cheering. But the war might be over. "Tell them we'll meet on Mars," Day said. "Neutral ground, and tell them if this is a trick, we have more ships ready to launch. We'll kill every Velcran in the galaxy if we have to." Commander Reth, watching from his flagship, knew it wasn't a trick. He'd seen the footage from the homeworld. He'd watched his people die by the billions, all because he'd underestimated humanity. "They were willing to commit genocide to survive," he said quietly. "We tried to commit genocide first," Vex reminded him. "We started this war to exterminate them. They're just finishing it." "No," Reth said. "They're showing us that exterminating them costs more than any victory is worth. That's the lesson. That's what we failed to understand." The negotiations took place in a dome on Mars. Elder Thren led the Velcran delegation. General Day and Governor Hyun led humanity. Between them on the table sat the terms: immediate cessation of all hostilities, Velcran withdrawal from all human territory, establishment of a 50-light-year neutral zone around Earth, mutual non-aggression pact for 1,000 years. Thren read the terms with shaking hands. "You've killed 25 billion of my people. We've killed 10 billion of yours. How do we have peace after this?" General Day looked at her with hollow eyes. He'd personally ordered the revenge fleet. He'd personally sentenced 25 billion Velcrons to death. He would carry that weight forever. "We remember what war costs. We make sure both sides are too afraid to start another one. We teach our children that this must never happen again." "And if future generations forget? If someone wants revenge?" Governor Hyun spoke up. "Then they'll remember what we did. They'll remember that humanity was willing to take everyone down with us. They'll remember that attacking us costs everything. Peace through mutually assured destruction. It's not pretty, but it works." Thren signed the treaty. Her hand shook so badly she could barely write. "I voted for this war. I thought you were primitives. I was wrong. You're the most dangerous species I've ever encountered." "We didn't want to be," Day said quietly. "We wanted peace. You took that choice from us." The war ended officially at 1400 hours, Mars Standard Time, 6 weeks after it began. 10 billion humans dead, 25 billion Velcrans dead. The bloodiest war the galaxy had seen in 50,000 years. And nobody won. 50 years after the war, Earth was still rebuilding. Where New York once stood, there was now a memorial park covering 50 square kilometers. The names of 8 million dead were carved into black stone walls that stretched for miles. Similar memorials existed where Shanghai, Moscow, Mumbai, and Lagos had been. Cities that would never be rebuilt because nobody could forget what had happened there. The population of Earth had climbed back to 9 billion. The scars remained visible from space, radioactive zones that still glowed faintly at night, areas where nothing would grow for another 1,000 years. But humans were stubborn. They'd survived extinction, so they'd survive this too. On Mars, the colony had grown to 5 million people. Governor Hyun had died 15 years ago, an old woman who'd spent her last days telling young people about the war. The colony erected a statue of her standing with General Day, two leaders who'd saved humanity by being willing to destroy everything. The Velcran Empire had collapsed. When 25 billion of your people die in a single day, civilizations don't recover easily. The empire fragmented into a dozen smaller nations, all focused on rebuilding rather than conquering. The Velcran homeworld was still recovering from the biological weapons. Population was down to 8 billion from the original 40 billion. The survivors would carry genetic damage for generations. Commander Reth had died 10 years after the war. Suicide. He'd never recovered from the knowledge that his decision to exterminate humanity had killed 25 billion of his own people instead. His last message was simple. I was wrong. They weren't primitives. We were the primitives, because we thought overwhelming force was the only strength that mattered. Jiwoo had survived the war, one of the few resistance leaders who made it through. Now 78 years old, she stood in front of a school group visiting the Terran War Memorial on Mars. The children were from Earth, Mars, and the new colonies humanity had established in the decades since the war. She walked with a cane now, her Olympic athlete body worn down by time and old wounds. "Any questions?" she asked the children after telling her story. A small boy raised his hand. He couldn't have been more than 7, the same age as that girl who detonated herself 50 years ago. "Were you scared?" Jiwoo smiled. "Every single day. I was terrified. We all were. But being scared didn't mean we could stop fighting." A girl asked, "Did you hate the aliens?" "At first, yes. They killed my family. They killed my friends. They destroyed my city. But later, I learned something. The Velcran soldiers were just following orders. Most of them didn't want to be there. They were scared too. The real enemy wasn't them. It was the idea that some lives matter less than others. That some species can be exterminated because they're considered primitive." Another child, older, maybe 14, asked the hard question. "We killed 25 billion of them. Were we the bad guys too?" Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. "That's a question I've thought about every day for 50 years. We did a terrible thing. We committed genocide in self-defense. Does that make it right? I don't know, but I know this. If we hadn't done it, humanity would be extinct. Every human who's been born in the last 50 years, including all of you, only exists because we were willing to do something horrible. That's a weight we survivors carry. It's a weight you'll carry too, knowing what humanity is capable of when pushed to the edge." She paused, looking at the memorial behind her. The Velcrans learned something that day. They learned that humanity doesn't fight to win. We fight so the other side loses too. We fight so that attacking us costs everything. That's not something to be proud of. It's something to be careful with. Because that kind of power, the willingness to burn everything down, is only as good as the wisdom of the people who hold it. Dr. Mina had lived to see 75. She'd spent her remaining years after the war trying to undo the damage, developing technology to clean radiation, to restore ecosystems, to help the Velcran homeworld recover from the biological weapons she'd designed. Some called her a hero for saving Earth. Others called her a monster for killing 25 billion Velcrans. She called herself neither. "I was just a scientist who did what needed to be done," she'd said before dying, "and I'll spend eternity wondering if there was another way." General Day had lived longer, making it to 92. He'd refused all honors, all medals, all recognition. "I ordered the death of 25 billion people," he'd said. "You don't get medals for that." He'd spent his final decades working with Velcran survivors, trying to build a peace that would last. His funeral was attended by both humans and Velcrans. The enemy had become allies, bonded by shared trauma. In the neutral zone between human and Velcran space, a monitoring station existed. It was jointly staffed, 5 humans and 5 Velcrans watching to make sure the peace held. They ate meals together, shared stories, became friends. Their children would grow up never knowing a time when their species were at war. That was the point. On Earth, at the Global Defense Academy, young soldiers studied the war. They watched the footage of Captain Haewan's suicide run. They studied Jiwoo's resistance tactics. They analyzed Young Ho's final mission. And they learned the lesson that humanity had paid for with 10 billion lives. The instructor, a veteran named Min Soo, who'd fought in the tunnels beneath Seoul, addressed his class. "The war taught us 3 things. First, humans will not surrender no matter the cost. Second, we're capable of incredible violence when threatened. Third, that violence should terrify us more than it comforts us. He brought up footage of the Velcran homeworld burning. The students, young people who'd never known war, looked away. "Don't look away," Min-Su said firmly. "This is what humanity did. This is what we're capable of. 25 billion people died because we were willing to commit genocide rather than be exterminated ourselves. That's your legacy. That's what you're defending when you put on that uniform. The species that would rather destroy a world than surrender." One student raised his hand. "Sir, are we the villains?" "That depends on who's telling the story," Min-Su said. "To the Velcrans who lost family, yes, we're monsters. To the humans who survived, we're heroes. The truth is probably somewhere in between. We did what we had to do. Whether that makes us right is a question philosophers will debate for centuries." Across the galaxy, 200 species had heard about the war. About the primitives who'd been attacked and who'd responded by killing 35 billion people total before forcing peace. The story spread. Other species, ones who might have considered conquering Earth, reconsidered. Some out of respect, most out of fear. A saying developed in galactic common language: "Don't fuck with humans." It was crude, but accurate. Humanity had spent 50 years proving they were willing to befriend anyone, but would burn down everything if attacked. It was deterrence through demonstrated insanity. Jiwoo finished her talk at the memorial and watched the children leave. She sat on a bench, looking at the stars. Somewhere up there was the Velcran homeworld, still recovering. Somewhere up there were species who'd heard what happened and decided to leave humanity alone. Somewhere up there was the memory of 10 billion humans who'd died so the rest could live. "Was it worth it?" a voice asked. She turned to see a young Velcran, maybe 30 years old, wearing a translator device. "I don't know," Jiwoo said honestly. "Was your people's attempt to exterminate us worth the 25 billion Velcrans who died?" The young Velcran sat beside her. "I lost my entire family in the biological attack. 3 generations gone in one day. I was raised by survivors who'd lost everything. They taught me to hate humans. But you're here. I'm here because I needed to understand. I needed to see the people who killed my family. I expected monsters. I found people. Tired, sad people who carry the same weight I carry." Jiwoo nodded. "That's what war does. It turns people into weapons and then asks them to be human again afterward." They sat in silence, watching the sun set over Mars. 2 people from species that had tried to exterminate each other, sharing a moment of peace. "The memorial behind us," the Velcran said. "It lists human names, 10 billion of them. Do you know we built a similar memorial on the homeworld? 25 billion names carved into crystal that will last 1,000,000 years." "Good," Jiwoo said. "No one should forget. The moment we forget what war costs, we'll be ready to do it again." Deep in space, the automated beacon that humanity had launched 50 years ago continued transmitting. It broadcast on all frequencies, in all known languages. A simple message: "This is Earth. We wanted peace. We were given war. We survived. Approach with friendship, and you'll find no better allies. Approach with hostility, and you'll learn what these coordinates mean." The coordinates were for the Velcran homeworld, or rather, what it had looked like the day after Young-Ho deployed his weapons. 40 billion people reduced to 15 billion in 24 hours. Cities burning, the atmosphere poisoned, a world dying. It was a promise and a threat. Be our friend, and we'll die for you. Be our enemy, and we'll take you with us. 50 years later, no species had tested that promise. 50 years later, humanity still carried the weight of what they'd done. 50 years later, the galaxy knew one absolute truth: humans don't quit. They don't surrender. They don't forgive. And if you try to exterminate them, they'll make sure everyone loses. It wasn't peace through love or understanding or diplomacy. It was peace through mutually assured destruction. It was peace through fear. But it was peace nonetheless. And for a species that had stared extinction in the face and spit in its eye, that was enough. Ji-Woo stood up, her old bones creaking. She looked at the young Velcran. "What's your name?" "Rin. And yours?" "Ji-Woo." "It's nice to meet you, Rin. Our species tried to kill each other. We both lost everything. But we're still here, talking, trying to build something better. Maybe that's how we honor the dead, by refusing to repeat their mistakes." Rin stood as well. "My teachers say your species is dangerous, that you're all crazy." Ji-Woo laughed, a sound that held 50 years of pain and survival. "They're not wrong. We are crazy. We're the species that looked at extinction and said, 'Not today.' We're the species that decided if we were going down, we'd take everyone with us. That's not sanity. That's spite. But spite kept us alive, so we'll take it." She started walking toward the shuttle that would take her back to Earth. She turned back once. "Tell your teachers something, Rin. Tell them humans aren't dangerous because we're strong. We're dangerous because we don't know when to quit. Remember that. Tell everyone. Because the next species that forgets will learn the same lesson the Velcrans did. And nobody wants that." The shuttle lifted off, carrying the old resistance fighter home. Below, the memorial stood silent, a reminder of the war that had changed everything. Above, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the violence that had happened beneath them. And somewhere in the galaxy, Commander Reth's final transmission still existed in archives. "Eliminen a todos los humanos ahora." Eliminate all humans now. He'd tried. The galaxy remembered what happened when he did. And the galaxy would never forget.